Hey there! I can't believe it is now 3 years since I put my first watercolor video out, and I thought, as a thank you for all the support you have given me and this channel in the last 3 years, it would be fun to do a Q&A question. So I have my cup of coffee in my favorite mug, so let's sit down and answer some questions. Thank you so much for everyone that gave me loads of really great questions, both on my Patreon and Instagram. They have been amazing. I'm just pulling them up now. Let's have a look. First question is, where do you want to go with your channel and your art? And that's a great question, and it's actually, I'm glad that somebody asked, because it gives me the chance to talk about what I want to do with the channel from now on. I spent a lot of end of last year, working on figuring out what it is that I want this channel to be, and the result that came out of that is that I want this to be a channel where you go for if you have a color that you want to know what it looks like and how it behaves in any brand that I do cover. And I feel that the best way to do that is to do swatches of entire ranges of brands. I know that's like a massive multi-year project, but I like to think big, and so it's going to be a swatching every color from one brand, then moving on to the next brand. And I've been in talks with several brands who have kindly offered me watercolors to do those series, and I'm really excited that they said yes, and that this channel is now big enough to get such generous brand offers. And they are all sending me the paints for free, but I'm not getting paid for making the videos, and therefore you will get the honest opinion that I always give on this channel, so don't worry about that. So that's where I want to take the channel. I'm also almost, and this has been a really big project last year and this year, finished with the first stage of the database, the watercolor database that I've been working on. I'm gonna need another couple of months to do some detailed work that I think is gonna make the database way more useful, even on its first iteration, and then I will be working continuously on that to bring more useful information on that database as well this year. So that's where I want to go with Kano as a brand. In terms of my own art and where I want that to go, I feel like, so 3 years is long enough to do a degree, and I feel like I've now learned like the first year of what you would probably learn in an art course, and I'll go into more detail what I've learned later, because I know there's a question coming up about, you know, what the last 3 years is like. But I'm finally figuring out what kind of art I like to create, and that's a lot more abstract and looser and a lot more chance stuff. So that's where I want to take my art. Next question is, could you show us your Edinburgh one day and Otto Loves tour? Can we check in with that question once the lockdown and coronavirus has calmed down a bit, because I don't think I can do anything until those are gone. Next question is, where did you learn all of that, and would you please never stop? I will try to never stop. I will see how it goes, because of my bipolar, I can never say for sure if I can carry on with something forever, and also I get disinterested in things really quickly. I'm actually really pleasantly surprised that I've stayed interested in watercolor this long, and that I hope it lasts for many more years. In terms of where I learnt it, if you notice with my video content, it's not usually about the things I've learnt. It's usually about, here's some tests I did for you guys, and here's what I see, because I don't have enough watercolor knowledge to teach you guys anything that either you guys already know. And I felt that doing this experiment and letting you guys know what I observed was much more better value that I could offer you guys than anything else, like teaching how to paint watercolor and stuff. And so I feel like I don't I haven't learned it and then taught you guys. I'm just letting you guys know what I've observed. Next question is the YouTuber life what you were expecting? Good question. Is the YouTuber life what... I don't know what I was expecting to begin with. I kind of fell into doing YouTube, and I'm sure I've told you guys this before, but I started in making YouTube videos because I decided one year that I was just going to embrace my introvertedness and really just change my career into something that I can do at home without having to go to art markets to sell my stuff and things like that. And YouTube seemed like a really obvious starting point, and that's how I got started. Definitely in terms of unexpected things that I had to learn along the way that I wasn't really expecting was just how much you need to know about the technical sides of things like making videos and all the Patreon stuff. They're quite technical, and I wasn't expecting that with like photo editing and stuff. I'm really bad at photo editing, and I have a lot of fear around photo editing, so that's been interesting. Quite ironically, another thing is just because I started off going, okay, I'm going to embrace my introvertedness, on how many people I get to talk to now about watercolor, both on the YouTube channel and on Patreon and Instagram and Twitter, as well as how many friends I've made. I wasn't expecting to make so many friends. I now have a best friend, and that I get on so much better than I've ever gotten with any of my friends before, and so many other people that I talk to that I really look up to as well. So that has been really great. Next question is, what would be your dream travel destination? I think, so if you don't know, I spent 2.5 years traveling around the world with my husband. I'd say 2.5 years, but a year and a half of that was spent in Japan. So about like a year traveling around, and I've hit all the dream destination that I ever wanted to go, because that was kind of the point of traveling around the world. So the question that I can answer would be, where would I like to go again? Because I haven't really picked up any new other destinations that I want to go. I love Copenhagen, really love Copenhagen, and I have friends there, and I would love to see them. That is probably on my top of the list for where I want to revisit as soon as the coronavirus thing settles down. Obviously after Japan, to see my mom. She's doing okay. She's not staying in, but that's a whole nother thing. But she's okay. Thank you for all those people who are wondering how she is. So I would go to Japan, then Copenhagen. I don't know, that's about it. I have very little travel bug now because I got it out of my system. So I'm really sorry I can't answer that question very well. Next question is, what have you learned in those 3 years in terms of life and art? In terms of art, I've learned a lot about how different the art I like to consume and appreciate is so different from the art I actually like the process of making. I like a lot of landscapes, I like a lot of portraiture. I'm fascinated by people painting faces and things, or going out plein air painting and making amazing painting out of the landscape that they see. However, turns out that is not what I'm interested in, because I can draw faces, not a problem. I took a week course, I advanced far enough to know that I have the natural ability to be able to get really good at portraiture if I wanted to, but it was so mind-numbingly boring for me to actually do it. And I've learned that I don't really enjoy the process of making something accurate. So even though I can do it accurately, I'm just not interested in it. It's not where my passion is at in terms of the practice of creating art. So that's one thing. I also learned that I like to make several pieces at the same time of the same concept and just pick the best one, rather than trying to get the right one in the first shot, or just painting one at a time and then feeling like I failed. I feel like if I can dig out a piece that I'm happy with out of a few, then that is awesome. By the way, weather's really changeable today. We have gone through really bright sun like this to dark snowstorm weather. So I'm sorry about the light level. It's gonna just keep changing, but I'm gonna get this video filmed. I feel like now I've tested out all the arts that I felt I should try or I should be able to paint, because one of the things that we go through as an artist when you start watercolor is, oh, I should be able to do everything: the landscape, portraiture, figurative, realistic, abstract. And I've now finally got to a point where I'm like, okay, I don't like most things. This is a thing I like doing, which is like abstract and quite loose and not about chance rather than about a fine controlling watercolor. We all get told watercolor isn't the easiest medium to control, and I'm like, why am I wasting my time trying to control something that doesn't want to be controlled? I would much rather just go with the medium. If it's an unruly medium, then I am so happy to practice how to let the watercolor do whatever it wants and find beauty in the result. Next question is something you always wanted or planned to do in your lifetime. Oh, definitely the traveling around the world was one. That is a tick. This year we kind of need to buy a house or like an apartment. So even though it's not like something that I've wanted to do in my life, it's something that I need to do this year. So hopefully we'll find a nice one this year. Other than that, I think this year I have such huge project ideas happening for this brand in terms of the watercolor database, and start doing full range series of swatching. I also want to start doing brush series where I test out brush, partly for my own personal reasons, because there's a brush I really like, which is the Princeton Heritage 4050, but there's like a shortage in the UK. I think they're getting phased out in the UK, and yeah, I can get it from the US, but then there's import taxes and it gets really expensive. And so I want to find a brush that's similar to that. So I have bought, hold on, these are all the brushes I've bought in the hope that I'll find one that will suit me. And basically I just grabbed all the brushes that I could find in the UK, and I also got a bunch of brushes from Japan, because that is a potential source of brushes for me. And I thought, rather than just do it for myself, why not do a brush testing series so that you guys get to learn from them as well, because I'm in a really fortunate position now that I have you guys' financial support. That means I can buy these many brushes, although to be fair, if it was just for me, I would never buy this many brushes. But since I started thinking, I could do a brush series about this, then I kind of went a little bit crazy and bought everything I could find. But so thank you so much to Patreons for all your financial support. You are definitely 100% enabling this series to happen, no doubt, because I couldn't afford these many brushes on my own. So thank you for your support. So yeah, I have lots of big ideas of where I want to take this business and where I want to take this channel. I hope you guys are excited about it as well. Next question is, how are you doing, Otto? Thank you. I'm doing great. I am going through a non-depressive phase at the moment. I wouldn't call it manic phase. I don't feel manic. However, it means I can get a lot of work done, and it's been so nice to just wake up in the morning and get loads of work done, because that is something you can't do when you're depressed. And I'm really excited and hugely motivated to work on this channel, and hopefully I'm doing a lot more in terms of not preventing depression, because I can't prevent the depression, because that's kind of the point of bipolar, but to lighten the load, lighten the effect of it by doing lots of workouts. I'm in therapy, which has been amazing. This is the second time I think this is the second time of going into prolonged therapy, and it's just been amazing. And I like to talk about therapy because I want to normalize it. If you're thinking of it, goodness, do it, because it is just going to be so wonderful for you. Next question is, when you paint abstract, do you go in with a plan or is it totally intuitive? So I don't have a plan when I have a abstract painting session. I actually have a technique that I want to explore. I would have seen it in a class, or I've seen somebody else using that technique, or on YouTube. And I'm like, oh, that technique looks really exciting. And what I tend to do is just do that over and over and over with things like different brushes or different colors, just to see what they're going to look like. I feel like I have an artist disability in that I can't just imagine up colors together or effects together. I have to see every permutation of that technique to know what that's going to look like and to learn from that, rather than just know it instinctively. I don't know, some artists, they just know how to put colors together. I need to see every possible combination of colors before I'm like, okay, I like this one. I think that is kind of like a critical disability as an artist, but here I am, I'm an artist, so I kind of have to do what I gotta to make this work for me. So I tend to use technique, so that's how I will go into a painting session, rather than, hey, I want to paint a painting like this, partly because I find it very difficult to make that happen for myself yet, and also I feel like I still have so much to learn from the paints. The paints have so much to teach me, and the brushes have so much to teach me, and the papers have so much to teach me, and I'm just enjoying that process of learning from the materials. And that, yeah, so that's how I do it. Next question is, ideal current palette of colors by color and maker. So I have a video on what I have on my palette that I made a couple of years ago. Not a lot's changed. Let me pull it up. I think about the only things that changed. So this is my studio palette. This is my go-to palette, and you can tell that it's my go-to palette because it's so messy, but I love it. I've used this palette for about 2.5 years now, and I just keep adding to it or changing it. So with this, here we go, let's put it here. The only thing I think I've changed is I've taken out the permanent yellow orange. You can see that there. And the reason for that is I never use it. I don't use yellowy oranges, and it was just... all the other colours gets used and they get dense. It's just permanent yellow orange never got used. And I already have a trans red oxide to do the same function of neutralising the ultramarine blue, so I was like, whatever, I'm just going to take it out. I have this year added nickel azure yellow and indigo, and that's from taking a Anita Lehman's course, which I will link down below. No affiliate, it's just I love her classes, and she was like, okay, use these colors, and I used them and I really enjoyed them. And so I've swapped this out with a indanthrone blue that I used to have, with a Holbein indigo now, which is something that I've always wanted to do for a long time because I feel more comfortable with indigo. Probably something to do with my Japanese background than indanthrone blue. So that's what I've done. And nickel azure yellow has been fantastic to paint with, and that's been fun. I've also added green gold from Daniel Smith since that green gold Colossal Color Showdown, and I found out they actually make really good colors for landscapes as a mixing color. So that's the only three. All the other colors are the same as a transparent palette link video that I linked earlier. And I do have the yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt umber here from Holbein, but I don't really use it. I still don't really use it, so they don't really count, and I can't remember if that was in the video or not, but yeah, I thought I'd let you guys know. So that's my palette. I'm just going to show you like this in case you need to copy it. There you go, you can pause the video and get all the information out. Next question is, when did you start learning watercolor? Literally 3 years ago when I made this video. I started watercolor when I made this video, or I made the video, I think was my first proper class in watercolor that I took with, I can't remember who it was, I can't remember the name, but if you scroll back far enough on this channel by time, you'll find it. And I was talking about a palette, I have thought about doing one of those videos where you look at your old video and react to it, but I know it's really bad video because I had none of the equipment I have now. So I don't know how comfortable I feel. But yeah, that's when I started. So 3 years ago. Next question is, how did you start YouTubing? I always feel like I've already answered that question in that I wanted to embrace my introvertedness, and this seemed like a really good place to start because I can talk to a camera no problem, but talking to people face to face to sell my art is a lot harder. And I'm so glad I did make that change because this has been so much more fun and it's been so much easier to do, and it's been so much better for my mental health. So yeah, it's been great. Next question is from Dan. Hi Dan, favorite video you've made? Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I don't know. I'm very proud of the Primatics series in that they are now complete, although actually I know it's missing a red jasper. It is coming. When I do all the Daniel Smith watching, I will do the red jasper and add it to the playlist so you guys have the full range. I'm really proud of that one. I'm also really proud of the Colossal Color Showdown series because that series takes some serious amount of work, both in terms of research, gathering the supplies, and it's time as well as financial because that is a really expensive series to make, as you can imagine, because you're gathering 12 watercolors per episode. But it seems like you guys find that really useful, so I'm really proud of that. In terms of my most successful video, I think is the 10 more advanced technique in adding texture to watercolor. I think I can't even remember what it's called. That is my most popular video. I'm sure a lot of you have come across this channel from that video because it, for some reason, that video did so much better than any other video I've ever made by far. And I'm so grateful for that video because it's made this channel a lot more successful than it would have been without it. So I think that's my favorite video because who doesn't love a video that succeeds? Next question is, who are your favorite artists who don't use watercolor? So I know a lot of artists, but I don't know if they don't use watercolor per se. I think most artists did, certainly in like impressionist and post-impressionist times, and I know this is gonna sound so cliche, but I love Van Gogh. He's just amazing, and one of the reasons why I wanted to travel the world was to see like as many of his paintings I could. I was so lucky because when I was in Paris for a month, the Orsay Museum d'Orsay had an exhibition on Van Gogh paintings, and I was like, oh my god, what a great timing. Thank you. So I got to see a lot of there. Traveled around the world to see more Van Gogh. Went to the Kröller Museum in Netherlands, as well as the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. Kröller is if you don't know, is the second largest collection of Van Gogh Museum. Obviously, Van Gogh paintings. Obviously, Van Gogh Museum is the largest. Kröller is the second. Kröller is beautiful though because it is set in a national park. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely go to it. The Night Cafe lives at the Kröller Museum, and also gone to MoMA. I think it was MoMA. Was it MoMA or the Met? To see the Starry Night. I cried in front of the Starry Night. Van Gogh. I also have a weak spot for Van Gogh purely. I mean, I liked his paintings before, but then Doctor Who did an episode with Van Gogh in it, which is like the most beautiful. I still cry when I think about it. It's the most beautiful episode ever. And I actually, I don't know why I get really teary when I think about it. I can't believe I'm crying on camera. So I actually walked down the aisle on my wedding day to the music that gets played in that episode. That's a little trivia for you. Oh gosh, why am I crying so much? It means a lot. And if crying about it doesn't... I think crying about an artist is a proof that he means a lot. Oh, excuse me. Right. Anyway, other artists. I really like contemporary art. Really like contemporary art. I like conceptual art a lot. And I know conceptual art is really hard to get into, but once you get into it, it's so good. So a lot of artists that do conceptual art, I don't think do watercolor as their main medium, certainly. And that's also really nice. I love the added context that they have to put in to whatever they create. I'm really interested in that. So most of the time when I go to an art gallery, if it's a conceptual art or contemporary art, I spend more time reading that little information placard, because that's the only way you will ever understand a conceptual art, is by reading this placard, then looking at the pieces themselves, because they are so fascinating. Next question is, how has color positively impacted your mental health? I can't live without colour, in case you haven't noticed. I love colour, and I think it's not that I love watercolour. I know that this is like a really weird thing to say as a watercolour artist and as a watercolour teacher. It's not that I fell in love with watercolour. I fell in love with the colours that watercolour can produce, and how there are so many colours. I love every single one of them. I love how many colors they are. I know a lot of artists, they stick to their limited color palette and they're just not interested in other color palette. Great, and I wish I could be like them, because that would save me so much money. But I'm just so fascinated by just how many different colors they are. And each color, when you think about it, somebody had to find that pigment and then create their own recipe into making that into paint, and then make it into a product and get it to you. And I love that story. And each new color is like meeting a new friend, making a new friend. And I just love the vast variety that watercolor has, that I don't think any other medium has. Certainly acrylic, oils, they don't have as many variations as we do in watercolor, and that's what I absolutely love the most about it. And also with crochet, some of you, I think everyone knows that I love crochet, and it's just my jam. And the reason why I like crochet as well is because it's a really easy way to put color. One of the things I've learned in the last 3 years in terms of my art is that I've learned that whatever form it is, I'm not interested in it really in the making of that product. So I get interested in how to make it, but in terms of carrying it on, I'm not that interested. So in terms of paint making, in terms of yarn, spinning yarn or dyeing yarn, I know how to do them, but then don't excite me in the same way. And I'm not interested in carrying on once I know how to do it. I'm interested in putting the color down, like putting down the color, making it into something. And the easier the act is to put down that color, the more fun I have. So in terms of yarn, I love crochet because it's fast and it's easy. I can do it without really looking at the thing that I'm crocheting, and it's about just putting colors together, and that's really fun for me. Whereas knitting, I'm not that keen on, because it's really slow, and if you drop a stitch, I don't like things where if you make one mistake then it's really hard to fix, or it's really critical. And in terms of watercolor, it's why I don't really like doing realistic painting, even though I love seeing them, like botanical paintings and portraiture and landscape. I love seeing them, but I don't like doing the process of it. I like processes that are about a chance and just see what happens and how it goes. And I love painting with big brushes rather than little brushes, because again, it's the same thing in that it's easier for me to do that painting. I don't think I answered that question, but I can't live without color, and color is so useful in my mental health, because when I'm depressed, I use a lot of really bright, warm colors to cheer myself up almost. And then when I'm manic, I actually use more muted, cooler colors to calm me down. It's not a conscious thing, but when I look up the paintings I create in different moods, there's definitely a trend that I've just mentioned. Next question is, what is your favorite painting that you've ever made? I think I've answered this question in my last Q&A, and that is the wavy painting that's quite big that I'm sure I showed you guys in the last one. My current favorite at the moment is actually this one here. This one, it's a landscape painting that I did as part of Anita Lehman's watercolor workshop. I just love it. It took me seconds to paint this, and yet there's so much in it. And the reason why I love the azo yellow is this bit here is all azo yellow, and then the dark is indigo, and up here is indigo and not opera, but brilliant pink, bright rose by Holbein, I think. And so all the colors are Holbein except for the azo yellow, which is Daniel Smith. And this is my current favorite at the moment. Not my current favorite ever, because we've talked about that before, but this is my current one, and I'm doing more of these at the moment. Next question is, I love your comparison videos. Tell your favorite comparison or you wish to compare list. Oh, wish to compare list. I have so many. My favorite, I think my favorite, which is like the least popular comparison I've ever done, is the opera one, because I know a lot of people have love-hate relationship with opera. Some people love it, other people don't. That's totally fine. But with the opera one, because that one actually gave me a surprise, because Mugello actually came out as the brightest, and Mugello isn't my favorite brand. I don't hide that fact. I don't think they do good watercolor, and they do really weird pigment choices, and they really confuse beginner users, and there are some hues that they don't declare as hues, and those things annoy me. But their paint, I don't feel like is how paint should behave in terms of hue. But in terms of the opera pink, it was a great surprise that it is the most brightest opera pink out of all the colors that I've tried. So I think that is my favorite episode. Next question is there any country in South America you would like to visit? And the quick answer to that will be Mexico, because I really love Frida Kahlo's art, and so I would love to visit her. I think it's the blue home house that she lived with her family. I would love to see it. So definitely Mexico. And also I love Mexican food. I know over here we probably don't get authentic Mexican, it's all Tex-Mex, but I have been to a really amazing Mexican that felt really authentic over in The Hague. There's an amazing, if you go to Hague, look it up, it's amazing restaurant, and I loved that food even more than the food we get over here as Mexican. And so I definitely would love to try Mexico. Next question is, what art means to you? Really good question. It's an enjoyable way to put down color and let color exist in a way that's easy to see, because when it's in tubes, they're beautiful, but they're in tubes and you can't see it, and I think it needs to be put on paper before it can be appreciated. And so it's a means to create a mass of color that then can be seen, which is the thing that I really enjoy doing. Next question is, do you want to do live streams in the future? And the short answer is no. I find live streams really mentally draining, because I have to do the thing that I'm showing you guys and read your questions and answer your questions at the same time. And I found that hugely draining, and I found that it's really difficult to balance my work in other areas like making videos and Patreon and doing other stuff with this energy drain that the live stream created. And I don't even have my webcams anymore, because I'm just not interested in doing live streams anymore. There's a lot of things I would like to bring back and do if, say, Kano as a business becomes so successful that I can hire an assistant to do more of the repetitive job. At the moment, I'm not there yet. I'm nowhere near there yet to be able to support another person's wage. but there's a lot that I also do want to bring back, and Livestream might be if I have a lot less of the repetitive tasks off my plate. Next question is, if not this, what profession would you pick? Scientist? So I've done the scientist thing and I've done the academia thing, and it wasn't really my thing. If money was no object, then I would definitely do crochet, because it's the thing that I can do even when I'm ill in bed. Whereas with painting, it's something that I have to be on good form, full of energy and in good mood to be able to face the challenges that painting brings, because I feel like I have to show up to painting and be brave enough to put that brush down on the paper. Whereas with crochet, I can do it whatever the mood. So I feel like that gives me the message that, certainly for my body, that crochet is my thing. But there's so little money in it that I'm sorry, the light is fading again. I can only apologize for the changeable weather today. It's definitely my thing, but I'm also kind of glad that crochet isn't my job, because I think it will be very different if I have to do it as a job and like as a pattern designer and thing. Whereas I love having and doing the job as a watercolor art teacher. That is my jam in terms of a job. So yeah, but if not this, then it will definitely be something crochet related. Next question is, if you could be any animal, what would it be and why? And I think a lot of people will know the answer to that already. It's a seal. Seals are my spirit animal. They're so fat and fluffy, and they're little fairies on ice to me. I just love them, so it will be seal. Next question is, I would like to know, what are the 3 things you have learned from having your channel that you think are most beneficial to your growth as an artist? Oh, that is a really, really good question, Emily. 3 things you have learned from having your channel that, and I know I'm reading again, I'm just trying to soak that question in, because that is a question on another level. It's great to have accountability, and for me, YouTube and definitely Patreon is my accountability, because I offer many paintings over on Patreon. It's the best accountability partner I could ask for. Many months in the last 3 years, I've had months where the only paintings I did were for the Patreon paintings, because it's a financial commitment that I've made with you guys that I will get those paintings done. But it would be the only paintings I create that month. But because of that, it has kept me in watercolor. I think without that, I would have left watercolor a long time ago. And so having some accountability like that in your art practice is hugely, hugely beneficial to your art practice. Another thing I would say is, and this is the same in whatever subject you teach, but you learn so much more if you then have to go and teach that thing. And that's totally true for watercolor. I know so much more about the watercolor paints now than I ever would have done for myself, and for that I am incredibly grateful. So if you really want to learn something, then definitely teach it, then, or make videos about it, then you're going to learn so much more than you would on your own. The third one is that YouTube is just such an amazing resource in terms of learning to do anything, either whether it's watercolor or anything else. But I've really, really enjoyed working through the art assignment by, I cannot remember her name, I'm so sorry, I will link it down below. And that is more conceptual art, but you can totally use that on watercolor, and that's been really good fun to do. And I think there's a book about it as well. There's also amazing watercolor art teachers here that teaches you how to do the watercolor, and they've been such valuable resources. Next question is, I'm curious what your largest challenge was in this type of career and what it was like to work through it. For me, by far the biggest challenge is the comment section of YouTube. I knew it walking in, starting, that the comment section was going to be fraught, but I didn't realize how affected I would be. So for a really, really long time, I just didn't look at the comment section. And even now, I have to be in a really good place to look at the comment section, otherwise it can derail me really fast. That was a surprise, and the way I dealt with that, as I said, was to not look at the comment section for ages. It's not that I'm ignoring you guys, it's just I realized I didn't know how to deal with it, and I didn't know how to deal with trolls and negative feedback, even constructive feedback. And I did realize that I couldn't tell the difference between trolls and feedback, negative feedback that was going to be useful to me. And hopefully I'm getting better at it. Hopefully I now know, like, when trolls are, sometimes you guys pull them up going, you're just trolling, and that's super helpful in the comment section, because I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what trolls looks like. So if you spot a troll on my comment section, please let me know that it's a troll, so that I'm like, okay, it's a troll. But I definitely found that it took me ages, and it would cut me deep, man, like so deep, and it would bother me for ages. But I also wasn't getting to the point where I could use that constructive feedback in a useful way. I'm getting a lot better at it now. I think going into therapy helped a lot. And no, don't worry, I don't talk about your comments in my therapy session. I just mean in general, having gone through therapy and doing therapy has helped me with my confidence and like less knee-jerk reaction, I would say, to what other people say, and also understand about where the hurt comes from, because I used to get way more hurt than I should have been, and I get where that pain's coming from, and that it's not the common thing. Honestly, therapy is amazing. But yeah, that's how I'm dealing with it, is to do it slowly, make sure that I'm in a good place before I read the comments, and also going through therapy. And the final question is, what made you decide to have a channel, and how did you conquer your nerves? So I've already talked about how I started, so I'm not going to go over that again. But in terms of how I got over my nerves, I think I was in a good place to start recording videos, because by then I was a university lecturer for 3 years before I quit and changed to become an artist. And that really definitely helps. I definitely feel so glad that I did 3 years of lecturing, because if you can lecture to a huge hall of like 200 teenagers, then you can do this video thing no problem. It's so much easier to talk to a camera like this than to 200 kids. And also, in case you don't know, both my parents are lecturers as well, so I kind of grew up in a lecturing family, and I must have picked up about camera work and stuff before. My only disadvantage, I think, or my only thing that I still struggle with, is how much I wave my hands, because I talk like this and a lot more hand movement as a normal. I'm sure I was Italian in another life, but I know I move my hands way more than I should. So that is one thing that I still need to work on. But in terms of my nerves, I mean, if I look back on my first video that I've ever made, I'm not going to, because I don't have the balls to. But if I did, I would sound nervous, and I definitely picked it up as I went along as well. And I had huge battles with verbal tics that I still continuously battle with. But once you start editing your voice, and you edit about 5 videos, you stop being weirded out by it. You just get used to it, and all you notice maybe is your verbal tics, if you have them, or if you pick up new ones, because you have to keep stopping and edit out those verbal tics. And once you edit it out, like about 20 ums or so's or like, I'm sure there's loads in this video, then you get so fed up with it that you actually go, okay, I need to do something about this, and you change how you speak. So in terms of having nerves, I didn't have as much nerves as most people would. I have no idea, and I hugely admire people who have no teaching background and just start doing this, because that must be so scary. But honestly, after like 5 videos, you'll get used to it. It's fine. Yeah, don't worry, you'll get over it really fast. A lot faster than I thought I was going to get over it. So it will definitely be the same for you. well, that's it. It's been a long video. YouTube algorithm is gonna hate me, but I still want to make this video because I just want to thank you guys so much for all your support over the last 3 years. I know so many of you are here from 3 years ago. Thank you so much for sticking by, and thank you so much for all the new people that have joined along the way. I feel like the channel has now become a community, especially in the comment section. It's wonderful, and especially in Patreon, you guys always give me so much feedback when I ask for feedback and going, hey, what do you think about this? There's like a whole army of you guys that come in and let me know and give me the feedback that I'm looking for. You guys are so supportive. You guys are the kindest, most generous people I've ever had the pleasure to hang out with. It's great to find my tribe. I hope that the things I'm planning for this channel and the brand is something that's exciting for you guys. I hope to bring you guys those things as soon as I can, depending on my bipolar. My bipolar is my biggest downfall in creating this channel, and it's my bottleneck. It's what throttles my productivity, but I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna keep coming back to do more work on those projects. I hope it's something that you guys are looking for and you guys are excited about. Thank you so much for both your support and watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.